Oh, I love it when I see that many hands. And we even have a volunteer. So Kathy is one of our regular weekly volunteers. So if you haven't been there, hopefully this will help you make the trip over and get you interested. As you've heard already, ReStore is part of Habitat for Humanity, and the ladies were so kind to hand out the brochures. If you look at the brochures, we've kind of packed them inside each other, and there's kind of a purpose to that. The outside package is Habitat for Humanity, and that's the overriding organization that we're part of. So Habitat for Humanity is where it starts. The ReStore is a part of that, and then Habitat ReStore Health and Home is actually part of the main ReStore, and I'll get to that a little bit in a little bit more detail. But the ReStore was started about almost 11 years ago now. A friend of mine and I discovered that there are businesses like this in the country. There were about 400 to 500 of them in existence back when we started ours, and we approached the Habitat Board and we said, you know, we think you should have a Habitat ReStore here in the Quad Cities. And they said, well, that'd be great, but we don't have any money for you. And so we were able to find some grant funding from the Iowa Department of Natural Resources to get us started. So that was how we got off the ground. The ReStore has a twofold purpose. One part of it is to support the work of Habitat for Humanity, and then the other part is to divert things from the landfill, keep things that are still good, give them a new home. And another purpose that was mentioned in the introductions, which we don't state publicly, but it's also a really important part of what we do, is we make items available to people so they can fix up their houses at a real reasonable cost. But as part of Habitat for Humanity that we support, Habitat for Humanity is an ecumenical Christian organization. They build homes with partner families, and whenever I talk to a group, I always like to make sure that you understand that the homes that people get from Habitat are not given to them. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions. The partner families are the people who actually move into the Habitat homes, and they are called partner families because they partner with Habitat. They have to contribute sweat equity in order to be able to even get their house started. So there are qualifications and criteria for being able to be called a partner family, but once that determination is made, then they do a lot of work with other volunteers to make that house a reality. And then they purchase the house from Habitat at a 0% interest mortgage. So, you know, that's usually around $80,000. So, you know, those of us who have regular mortgages know you pay a lot more than that in the end for that. But so it's a great deal, and it makes home ownership available to a lot of people who wouldn't otherwise be able to own a home. But it is not a giveaway program. So it's another thing I'm pretty proud of, and I think is a great part of the organization. Habitat for Humanity's goal, and Habitat works in countries all over the world, but their goal is to eliminate poverty housing from the face of the earth. So, you know, pretty ambitious, but so I think we'll be working at it for quite a long time. The Quad City affiliate of Habitat for Humanity was organized in 1993 after a trip to Florida. There was Hurricane Andrew. There were various hurricanes, so I want to make sure I'm talking about the right one, but a busload or two of Quad City residents went to help the people in Homestead, Florida rebuild after Hurricane Andrew. And after they got back to the Quad Cities, they had been working with Habitat for Humanity organization down there, and they were so impressed by that, they decided, you know what, we need to start a Habitat organization here in the Quad Cities because we have families that have need for housing here. So many of those people who went to Homestead, Florida are still involved in the Habitat affiliate here locally, but that's how that got started. The 80th home in the Quad Cities, built by Habitat for Humanity Quad Cities, is going to be dedicated this Saturday. So that's how many in the last 20 years Habitat has built. They're now building 5 to 6 a year, depending on the year and, you know, the weather and when they get them started and things like that. So that's the Habitat organization. The second part of our mission at the ReStore is to divert things from the landfill. and it's interesting because the ReStore's beginning also kind of went back to a hurricane situation, and that was in 2001. I had taken a trip with my church to Guatemala on a mission trip, and one of the things we did there was we built a home for a family whose home had been demolished in Hurricane Mitch. And they'd been living for about 3 years, I think, in a terrible situation. I mean, it was just poles and black plastic. And I was there for a week and worked hard. And how many have been on a mission trip to another country? And it can really make a big difference in how you look at things. And so after I got back, I was sort of in between jobs. And a friend of mine had asked me to do a presentation at our church about reuse. And so I thought, well, I was really kind of jazzed up about going to this place where, you know, they reuse a board, 5, 10, 25 times. We come home and, you know, it's a little crooked, so we throw it away. So I was really, you know, struggling with this discrepancy that I had seen in the world. And in my research for this class that I was supposed to do at church, I discovered that there are businesses out there that are taking building products and reusing them, or taking something that someone had taken out of their house and making that available to other people. So I happened to mention this to my friend, longtime friend, who, you know, she and I are really reusers and recyclers, and we'd run into each other at church pulling the aluminum cans out of the trash can and putting them in recycling. And she said, you know, I think I could get excited about that. So kind of unbeknownst to both of us, the more we learned about it, and we started doing some research, and we went to Chicago, and we went to Madison, and we went to Kansas City, learning about this type of business. And we discovered that we really liked the model that Habitat for Humanity already had established, and that's why we decided to try to open a ReStore. We went to the board of directors and said, we think you should let us open this store. And so that's kind of how it started about 11 years ago. It's been a great ride. I think one of the things that is really rewarding to me, looking back at kind of how I got started, or what sparked the interest in me, is, you know, when we're kids and we sit at the table and we're looking at our food that we don't really want to eat, and our mom says, you know, eat those peas because why?
Starving children.
There's starving children somewhere, you know, and you look at them and you think, wow, wish I could get those peas to some kid in India because I really don't want them. You know? Well, in a really interesting way, you know, the things that we find that we don't want anymore, if it's building products, if it's furniture, appliances, or things like that, that are still good and really shouldn't be thrown away, through the ReStore are able to be turned into cash that can then go places in other parts of the world, like Guatemala and farther places than that. Because a portion of what we make here in the Quad Cities, about 10%, does go internationally, and the rest of it stays in the Quad Cities. So since we started, we have contributed enough now, and I just did the figures again this morning, updated, to build 10 houses in the Quad Cities. So, and when you construct a house in the United States, it takes about 10% of as much to build in another part of the world. So we've probably built about 10 houses somewhere else in the world. I mean, their houses are very much less expensive and not nearly as nice, but some of that money has gone elsewhere as well. In the process, we have been able to divert about 9.5 million pounds from area landfills, which is very rewarding to me. If you come in the ReStore, it's a pretty big building. It's like 27,000 square feet. And you look around and you think, wow, where would all this stuff be if it weren't for the ReStore? And a lot of it, that answer would have been, you know, thrown away, because we do save a lot of things. In the ReStore, what we sell is, we started out selling only building products. So doors, windows, cabinets, light fixtures, plumbing items, things like that. That was our main product line. And that worked for a few years, and then we took over more of the building and decided about 2.5 years ago, that we could accept furniture, and that now has been kind of one of our best sellers. We didn't think that was going to happen at first, because there are other places that furniture is sold, used furniture, but it's been a very good seller for us. And now, so we've got the building products, appliances, and furniture in the main ReStore. And a little over a year ago, we had the opportunity to, well, actually we have a showroom part of our warehouse that was one of the nicer parts of the building, and we weren't using it very well. So we decided that we would try the health and home items, and those are, you know, wheelchairs, walkers, hospital beds, canes, crutches, shower benches, transfer benches, paper products, even like incontinence products and things like that, which often people are left with after a surgery or after a family member doesn't need them anymore. Whatever reason, there are a lot of those things out there in people's houses and closets. So what we decided to do was dedicate one of our nicer spaces actually to that kind of product. And it's been a very good thing for us. So that's the third brochure in your packet there. And if you haven't been to that store, I encourage you to come over too. It's been probably as much of a ministry as you start realizing, you know, the needs that people have and the appreciation that they have for getting those items at a real reduced price. That's been kind of touching to meet some of the people that are coming in, both to donate and to buy those kinds of things. We sell to the public. So sometimes one of the questions I get is, you know, can anybody shop in your store? And the answer to that is yes. When Nancy and I started doing research, originally one of the places we went to was in Chicago, and they had an income requirement, or a low income requirement. You had to have, you know, you couldn't, if you made too much money, you couldn't shop there. We didn't like that idea because we wanted it to be open to everyone. So it's more like a Goodwill store, Discovery Shop, a Salvation Army type of store. Anybody can come in. And we really need people from all walks of life and all income levels, because you get really some very expensive light fixtures and doors and things like that. So we need people that are shopping on all ends of the spectrum. One of my favorite things to sell are the doors, the older doors, because, you know, even if you had a new door bought or made, it doesn't look like the old doors. You know, it doesn't have the aging of the varnish and things like that. And it's so rewarding for me when someone will come in and they'll say, you know, I thought I needed this door, and back in the day, you know, they didn't standardize door sizes, and it needed to be 29.5 inches by, you know, 78. And I didn't think you'd have it. I was sure you wouldn't have it, and guess what, you did, you know, and that's really, and it matches, you know, it's a 5-panel, this kind of door, and that's what I needed. So not only are we saving people money, but we're actually making things go back into a home and making it look like it belonged there in the first place. So that's really, really rewarding. We get our items from lots of different places, from businesses, give us some of their new overage kind of things. We get a lot of things from remodelers, from contractors, just from people who bought something at Lowe's and lost a receipt, and now they can't return it, so they'll donate.